Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the podcast you come to when you're finally ready to take fantasy hockey seriously. My name is Groot Nibbelink. I'm the creator of Apples and Ginos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy, and this episode, Blake and I are going to bring you 10 players under 20% rostered on Yahoo that we think could help you win your league. Let's get it. And of course, I have your friend and my best friend. It's Blake Creamer. Blake, how are we feeling tonight?
I'm all right, man. It's another day in the life of a fantasy hockey analyst. Nothing going on at all to report. But yeah, it's a tough day for Canadians if you're following the Olympics here. What a great tournament. I mean, the tournament was excellent. The game today was pretty sensational. I mean, Canada did everything but put the biscuit in the basket, so shout out to the Americans, the American team, the women as well, like gold medalists. That's quite a feat, right? So there's a lot of players on that team that I'm so happy for, guys like Quinn Hughes in particular, Jack Hughes as well. So it was a great game, but yeah, it's just to start your day out that way. It's like, it doesn't get any better. It's just going to get worse. So it's like, I've been stewing about it all day and it just like, now I'm, this could be a spicy pod. Let's just put it that way.
It could be. Yeah, I feel similarly. I was solo parenting all day, so had the game on obviously in the morning, taking care of kids in the meantime, but also obviously watching the game pretty closely. And yeah, there was all the range of emotions. Canada dominated the second, third period, and then you get to 3-on-3 and anything can happen. Right?
Yeah.
And anything did happen. So yeah, it was a tough run out for the Canadians. Obviously, Hellebuck played incredible. Like that was easily the biggest goaltending performance of the tournament, and ultimately decided that game. In my view, definitely some missed chances from the Canadians. Couple of breakaways for their top players. Yeah. McKinnon with the empty net that he missed.
I forgot about that McDavid one. Yeah, geez, he got in so tight.
Yeah, it was quite the game. I feel like the Canadians definitely gave it everything they had. You can't fault the players, but yeah, like you said, kudos to the Americans. I just wish we had more Olympic hockey all the time because it was so fun to watch the two best teams in the world that we've ever seen. I feel like I don't think there's better quality of hockey that has ever been played than what we just witnessed. So I'm just sad that we're not going to get it again for a while, but we will get some World Cup of hockey. It's been promised, so there will be some good stuff in the future as well. Well, anyway, I think we should probably get back to some fantasy relevant topics, and that means, Blake, that we have some Newsies.
Newsies! Yeah! Oh, damn, the Canadians lost in the Olympic gold medal game. I'm not over it, okay? But that's fine. One thing that is really, really rough, and I've said this in our Discord, but all the injuries from the Olympics. Like, we love the Olympics. They're amazing. But we got fantasy hockey chips to win here, and these guys are tooting right in our faces, starting with Captain Canada. Sid Crosby obviously didn't play the gold medal game here, but sounds like he was close, right? Just a difficult decision there. So we'll have to see what the Penguins do when we get back home here. But yeah, that would obviously be a massive, massive loss for the Penguins. We got to look and see if Crosby does miss time. I think it's going to be Anthony Mantha who jumps up to power play 1, and that's a nice little piece for him. He's been doing it in limited minutes anyway, so I think you get him on power play 1. Obviously, his value is getting boosted there. That Pens power play has been pretty good, obviously because Crosby was on it, but still a nice place to be. Another injury that's really going to sting here, I think even more than the Crosby one, is Mikko Rantanen. He didn't play the bronze medal game, and it sounds like he could miss some time. That's what we saw from some of the Dallas beat reporters there. He could miss some time. Nothing super specific, but not season ending. So that's great. But even the fact that they're saying the word season ending in his injury, I don't like that. That's terrible, right? So, we have to wait and see what goes on there. But, one man's, pain is another man's gain. And we're thinking maybe Matt Duchene. Oh, those three things rhyme. That was not planned, folks. Okay. But Matt
When
Duchene.
You're hot, you're hot.
Exactly, buddy. I've never been hot. All right. Just ask my wife. Okay. I don't know why I'm going there. That's very personal. Yeah, but Matt Duchene should bump up to power play 1. And obviously that is a big time thing. If it is in fact Duchene that gets up there, because this is a guy that has proven to be a really good power play performer. And now he's going to get boosted up to a really, really good power play, a different power play than what we saw last year with the Dallas Stars. Even with Rantanen not there, I think Duchene is going to get a nice boost there. So you interested in Matt Duchene at all? Can I interest you in a Matt Duchene?
You definitely can. I'd be interested in Matt Duchene. I guess a rub for this week is like if you're looking at him to pick him up immediately.
Yeah.
The schedule for this week in particular isn't so great, but the following week, starting on the 2nd, that is actually a pretty good schedule week for Dallas. So looking ahead, I do think that Duchene, if he does indeed get power play 1, which we have seen, like he has been the next guy up previously, so I would be pretty confident in that. I think Duchene is worth taking a look at if you're fitting him in.
Was that Duchene again? It was Duchene. That's confirmed. Thank you, Duchene. John Carlson with the Washington Capitals wasn't at practice here recently. He is skating on his own in a non-contact jersey, so something to monitor there. Just means more minutes. Obviously, Chychrun was not coming off power play 1, but he's the golden goose there. He's good to go. Going to get tons of run, and then I think it solidifies Ryan Leonard there on power play 1. You know, John Carlson was getting power play 2 at that point as well. But yeah, it's just good for all those guys on power play 1 securing their role. Let's talk about the Avalanche here. Jared Bednar said he's contemplating sitting some of the gold medal game guys, which is expected, but it doesn't feel good for fantasy. Again, this is another one of those things. It's like we got fantasy hockey to worry about, and what the hell's going on with Nathan MacKinnon? I mean, I think it's pretty clear to see he wasn't really himself there in the tournament, and there's no real news that came out that he's injured or anything like that. So I don't know. Well, what's your quick take on MacKinnon there? Like, what do you think is going on with him, and what do you think we could see maybe moving forward the rest of the fantasy hockey season?
Yeah, I would be a little bit concerned about him. Like, obviously, he played a full complement of minutes, but it felt like we never really saw him get up to a full gallop the way that we normally do in the last 2 or 3 games. I think it was in that game. I think it was the game against Czechia where he was getting chippy and he had that one interaction where it looked like he came up lame a little bit, like a lower body thing, maybe ankle, maybe foot, something like that. I just wonder if he might not be hurting a little bit in some way, and maybe it's small, maybe it's he takes one game off here when he's coming back and then he's back to full force, but it did feel that way to me, and that just gives me a little bit of pause coming back.
It absolutely should too, because the Avalanche are, even though they haven't been playing that well as of late, they're still, easily the best team in the league. Their record shows that, and they could afford to rest some guys if need be. So that's not a great thing, right? I got Mac in 3 spots, and you should all just feel very, very sympathetic for me. All right. It's I need all the love and support I can get. Please hit me up in the comments with your nicest comments. All right. I don't know. That's terrible. I'm a wreck right now just because of Mac. All right, let's move on. We got to talk about the Florida Panthers. Guys like Aaron Ekblad, Brad Marchand, sounds like they're going to be good to go first game back. Marchand looked okay to me out there. I know they kind of slow rolled him a bit in the Olympics, but looked good in the gold medal game, I thought. And it sounds like they're also hopeful that Seth Jones is going to return sometime next week. He's playing in a non-contact jersey. I think Jones jumps right back onto power play 1. So that's a nice little stash. If he's out there, obviously you should have him in an IR plus spot or an IR spot. But if he's out there, I think it's a really nice stash, a good play. But we'll see. I mean, the Panthers are on the outside, and it's going to be really tough. They're going to have to put a really good run of play together to get into the playoffs, eh?
Yeah, there's a lot of teams in the East. Like, one of these teams for sure is going to get hot here, and one of these teams that's in the picture is going to get real cold, and like there's definitely going to be movement still. So the Panthers, if they want to take another run at this thing, they got to get hot, and they got to do it quick.
Absolutely, buddy. All right. I wouldn't care if they didn't get hot. You know what I mean? That's fine.
I don't think there'd be many people too sad if the Panthers
just enjoy your gold medals, Matt Tkachuk. All right. And just have a Coke and a smile. All right. Chill out. All right. That's fine. I'm not bitter at all. Over to the Bruins, Pavel Zacha definitely should be good to go on Thursday. So that's nice to see. He's been getting a good run of minutes there. Power play 1. So yeah, an option if you're looking at someone on Boston. Over to Tampa, Victor Hedman. See you at the party, Victor. Victor Hedman was partying too much. All right. He's got the dreaded LBI tag again, lower body injury. So, I mean, is there a potential for a shutdown risk here, do you think, with Victor Hedman?
Well, it's worrying, right? Like, lower body injury is what we've heard for the last 2 times that Edmund has missed time. Now it happens in warm up, which is like,
Yeah.
that's just concerning. It's making me think it could be the same thing all over again. And it's just a situation where, like, why is, like, Tampa's not in a position, of all the teams in the East, Tampa's the one that can afford to shut down a star defender like Hedman the most, given what they're getting out of Radish and Moser and other guys on their blue line. And so, yeah, like, it wouldn't be shocking to me if they just chose the safest, most cautious route here and said, take the rest of the season. We're going to be fine. We're going to be in the playoffs, and let's try to get you at full strength or as close to it as possible for the playoffs. So, yeah, it's a tough look for Hedman at the moment.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Has anybody ever, like, in the history of eating, been like, can you get me a radish, please? Can you get me a radish for this salad right here? Do you have any extra radishes in the back? Like, do you have those fancy radishes? Is there different kinds of radishes? You know what I'm talking about here, Nate? Is there one that's like aged in a barrel, that has a special musk? I don't know.
I don't know about special radishes, but I do know people who, like, legit would eat radishes on their own.
But would they seek it out? I don't know. That's a conversation for another time. I'm very curious about this. So hit us up in the comments about that. Radishes, would you, wouldn't you? We need to know that information. Also sticking with Tampa Bay, Braden Point sounds like he's going to be good to go. It sounds like he was kind of close to potentially playing in the Olympics. Didn't end up doing that. And that makes some sense, obviously, for Tampa Bay and their Stanley Cup aspirations. So I think he's going to be good to go, but check his status. Over to Anaheim, Mikael Granlund hit from behind into the boards late in Finland's bronze medal game there, win over Slovakia. Didn't return, so that stinks. I mean, he came out for the handshake line and got his medal, so that's fine. Did he get the stuffy too? I don't know. Did they give stuffies to the winners? I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe the bronze medal, you weren't special enough.
Yeah.
If you only won a bronze medal, you didn't get the stuff.
Yeah, you didn't even get the
true
stuffy.
prize.
Yeah. What the hell was that stuffy? We were talking about this offline, but whose bright idea was that? Who's the brainchild in the meetings leading up to the Olympics? Like, you know what? I think we need to give the second place team stuffies. This is really going to go over well. Yeah, I don't know about that. But yeah, check on Mikael Granlund there. It doesn't, hopefully it's nothing serious, but that could, make a potential difference in Anaheim. He's been getting a bunch of minutes and some power play time. So sticking with Anaheim, Leo Carlsson is also practicing in full. Looks good to go. So that's really nice. I think Anaheim could maybe get back to business here and get their lines back to what I thought really worked well. I mean, when you had Carlson with Terry and you have McTavish with Seneca and Cutter, that to me is what they need to be doing. Get Granlund on the third line. Right. I don't know what the hell was going on, but I don't know if he's injured. Maybe that'll help. Anyways, let's head over to the Devils. Luke Hughes. He looks good to go, right? Sounds like he's close to return. He didn't take a lot of contact in practice yet, but he's eligible to return from long-term injured reserve February 28th. So that's really nice stuff. I mean, RIP to your Dougie Hamilton stonks, right? I mean, I think that Hughes is probably the guy they're going to go with, and maybe like the Devils being so far out of it right now, I think Hamilton is probably, he could be traded, right? I think that's a real possibility. You also got Shimon Nemec there. So something to keep an eye on. I think Hughes is close. Let's move over to Winnipeg. Josh Morrissey didn't play after picking up an uppy body injury in the first game for Canada at the Olympics. But Neil Pionk is back. He's going to play Wednesday. Goody gumdrops. All right. No one cares. All right. Well, if you're in a category league, maybe you care about Neil Pionk. Do you have Neil Pionk anywhere, Nate?
I do in some deeper leagues. I mean, if he's going to get power play 1, if Marcy is out for a bit, like, I think I'd be pretty happy.
Just go with a 5-forward set and get Nino Niederreiter out there. All right. You want to win some games, you get Nino out there. Okay?
I think Niederreiter has had his worst season by far this year, but
you got to get him on power play 1. What are we doing here? I don't know where I'm getting the Nino love right now, but yeah. All right, let's move on. We got to talk about the Kings lines. Just a quick update here. So it sounds like Panarin actually had some say into what the lines are going to be, and he wants to play with Alex Laferriere and Adrian Kempe, which is a really nice place to be, right? I think that's an obvious boost for Laferriere. And Kempe, he's already got that really solid floor, but his ceiling gets raised up by playing with Panarin big time, right? Panarin's an excellent facilitator. Kempe's an excellent shooter. it just makes sense. All right. But sad trombone for Quentin Byfield. Yeah, he's just out in the cold playing on the second line there, but that's fine. He'll be good to go. But anyways, just a quick update on the Kings. Over to St. Louis, Robert Thomas. I'm not crazy. I'm just a little away. Is Rob Thomas still making music? Does anyone know this? I should look that up because I bet it sucks. I bet it just absolutely sucks. Not Rob Thomas, the player, but that's he's always catching strays here. Anyways, Rob Thomas, Dylan Holloway practicing again. Hopefully, both close to return. I think they're, Rob Thomas is definitely trade bait at this point. We'll see what happens with him. I think he can make a big difference for a team if he is traded, because he's an excellent facilitator in his own right. Last couple things here. Logan Cooley of the Utah Mammoth cleared for full contact in practice. That's nice. Hopefully, he can help that terrible power play there in Utah. And then Josh Norris, the legend, continues. He's practicing in full. He's going to be back for a total of 5 games, and then he's going to, pop an Achilles or something like that. We don't know what's going to happen, but yeah, Josh Norris is practicing in full. He should be back here after the break, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen as well could get into some games. Does that mean maybe Alex Lyon is traded?
Could. That's definitely in the cards. They have goalies, and goalies have been tough commodities to come by in the NHL this year. So I think there's definitely teams out there that could be looking at Alex Lyon like, you know what? Just even as an insurance option, this is a guy who could get hot at the right time and we could win with. So if the Sabres would be willing to deal him, I think there would be some interested suitors. But that being said, Lyon has been so good for them. Are they even going to entertain that option? There's a lot going on there, but something to monitor for sure. I just looked it up. Rob Thomas released a new album called All Night Days in 2025. I'm thinking we should reach out, Blake. I think we could get rights to the songs, and we could potentially.
I got to hear it though first, but I mean, yeah, like All Night Days. Was that an oxymoron? What is that, like jumbo shrimp? What? Just Rob Thomas over here, just galaxy braining the titles to his songs, buddy. Just sing the damn song, all right? Get Carlos Santana back in here, all right? Let's run it back, buddy. We got a good show for you, folks. Despite what I've just said here, Nate, tell the viewers what we're going to be doing today.
All right, what we're going to be doing is talking about 10 players that are 20% rostered or less on Yahoo, and the first one is Mr. Josh Norris.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, significant risks with Josh Norris just not showing up to work one day due to, a deviated symptom or something. I don't know. There's the problem with Josh Norris is that every time he does play, he looks pretty good. And he scores some fantasy points whenever he's in there. So it's a guy that you have to take notice of because even if you think the odds are not that great that he plays the rest of the season, this is a guy who's 20% rostered out there. Mm-hmm. Seems like a pretty good bet for Power Play 1 every time he's out there, although they were looking at Jack Quinn. I don't know if they really think that that's the best option. They did kind of rotate that around a little bit in the last few weeks, and he's been efficient every time he's been there. Talk to me. You've been the Josh Norris guy here on this pod for the last since the offseason, I would say, at this point, Blake. So let's talk about Josh Norris.
I love that. I'm the Josh Norris guy. I don't know how I feel about that. I used to be the Martin Necas guy, folks. Okay, that's a feather in my cap. But what have you done for me lately? I gave you Josh Norris. All right, at an extreme value. But yeah, it's I can't quit the player. I think we've seen proof of concept here with Josh Norris. The guy is extremely efficient, and he has a history of doing so. Right. And he's getting part of the problem when in his last little time there in Ottawa is he wasn't getting the opportunity. Well, when he's healthy for the Sabres, he gets the opportunity. And that means Power Play 1. That means top 6. And I think that he's actually found some really good chemistry with Alex Tuch. And Tuch is having a really, really nice season. And I think Norris is the premier option to play with Tuch, right? A much better option than what is happening with Tuch right now. So I just am a big fan of the player. I think, again, the efficiency to me is sustainable. It's something that he's done throughout his career. And I just like him as a forechecker too. I think that's something that Josh Doan, the dog, brings to the table with his line. But you bring Norris in here. He's an excellent forechecker as well. So good board battles, playing through contact and getting the puck to these guys. He's also a really good connector and has some good defensive abilities as well. So, yeah, I'm just a fan of the player. The reason I was so big on Josh Norris this year is because of the value. He was like ADP 200 or something stupid. And I saw a 60-point player, right? 60 to 65-point player. And I still see that, right? So if he's out there, I think – we just did our playoff show. Buffalo does have a reasonable playoff schedule, especially if you're weeks 22 to 24. Like this is a guy that can absolutely do something for you as long as he can stay healthy. And that's a big if. I'm not a big we are not big injury narrative guys, but this has been a brutal season for Josh Norris. And the last two before that were just as brutal. So we got to see him kind of stay in the lineup for a consistent amount of time. Hopefully he can finish strong. The Sabres, one of the things too, they played so well without Josh Norris. So that's kind of an interesting piece. Do you see him kind of fitting in and sort of supplementing, or do you think he can maybe disrupt what the Sabres got going on here?
Well, yeah, that is the biggest problem for me right now is the Sabres did so well largely without him, that I wonder if his role just might be a little bit more diminished when he comes back, just because they had something good going and they don't want to, disrupt the lines just to shoehorn him back into a spot. Like, yeah, for my money, there is a chance that he's not on power play one, or they continue to rotate guys in there. For my money, it's not a guarantee that he's stapled to Tage Thompson as he was for most of the time that he was in the lineup, because they have found some pretty good chemistry with Josh Doan and a host of other players, honestly. Alex Tuck most recently, but also Peyton Krebs actually had a decent run with them. Like, not as a point scorer necessarily, but he was facilitating enough for the other two to get to biz. So yeah, I really want to see what they're going to do with these lines. There were some practice lines, but they were like just a total blender situation with multiple people out. Zach Benson was out. Tage Thompson obviously not there. So yeah, I want to see what these lines look like. I do think the ceiling case is still there for Josh Norris. That's definitely exciting. 20% rostered. You could definitely do worse than to go pick him up. Just want to maybe temper my excitement or enthusiasm for Josh Norris slightly on those grounds. All right, next one up, Ryan Hartman. This is a player that it's going to depend for me still on what's going to happen at the trade deadline here. We've heard that the Wild have been sniffing around guys like Vincent Trocheck, stuff like that. So that says to me that in an ideal world, they would probably like to have Ryan Hartman as 3C, Joel Eriksson Ek obviously in the top 6, and then potentially a guy like Vincent Trocheck maybe even playing in the role that Hartman is currently in between Zuccarello and Kaprizov at even strength. That may or may not happen, right? They've already made one huge trade this year to acquire Quinn Hughes. That went amazingly. Do they really have the ammo? Are they the best contender for another huge trade this year? It's still to be seen. If it does happen, obviously this is going to fall off for Ryan Hartman. He's probably not going to be worth rostering. But in this spot between Kaprizov and Zuccarello, with Quinn Hughes scoring 1.5 points per game as he has in the 20 games leading up to the Olympics, obviously looked terrific in the Olympics once again. I think that there's a real scenario in which Ryan Hartman goes on a big bender here to end the season, and he's a guy that really does help you get into your playoffs if you need a guy down the stretch. Minnesota doesn't have a great playoff schedule, so that is a piece that you will want to be aware of. He might not be a guy who gets you over the finish line, but he can be a guy who gets you there, especially if you need some help getting into your playoffs. If you're around the edge of your playoffs currently, you need that extra push. I do think Ryan Hartman at 18% rostered is a good look here. It's a guy we've seen get hot quick in the past. When given the deployment, he's gone on some pretty decent spurts of higher end fantasy point production. So, and also, like, there's just this narrative with the Wild. It feels like the Wild are really feeling it as a team right now. I don't think that's going to change with Quinn Hughes and Matt Boldy coming back with gold medals around their neck. Right. I think that's going to even add a little bit of swagger. Maybe you've got Zuccarello and Kaprizov as the guys who've just been sitting at home chomping at the bit to get back out there. I think both of them will have benefited from some rest and recuperation. I think that there's a lot of scenarios here in which I even didn't even mention Brock Faber there, obviously on the American team as well. So yeah, I just feel like there's a lot of scenarios in which Minnesota has a really nice run to the end of the season here, and Ryan Hartman can be along for that ride and bring you a lot of fantasy goodness as a result.
Yeah, I really love that take. I totally agree with you. Just the mojo that these guys are bringing back to Minnesota. Hartman's American as well, right? Like this guy's going to be jacked up. So I really think that this is such a low risk to pick up a guy like Hartman, because this has been a guy in the past that's been a metrics guy, individual chance and shot generation out the wazoo. He does that, but he's also such a good player in transition, right? Which really helps, especially when he's lining up with Cap and, Zuccarello, right? Like this is a guy that can really help move the puck back the other way in a hurry and get the puck where it needs to go, which is in the hands of Cap, right? So that is an amazing opportunity for him. We, like you said, we have to watch and see what the Wild do. I don't know if they have the horses really to make a significant trade for a guy like Trocheck. I mean, if they bring Trocheck in there, geez, that would be a big problem. They're already a problem, but I do honestly believe that Hartman, if they don't do anything, I think Hartman is fine in that role. I think, he's not great defensively, right? I don't think that's if he's playing on line one, they don't really need him to do that, right? They need him out there getting the puck to these guys and just facilitating that, right? But I'm a big fan of the player. He's not going to get power play one, so don't think that's going to happen. But one thing that Hartman brings as well, really nice blocks. He's having an amazing year with his blocks. 76 blocks in 54 games. That's pretty elite. I haven't looked it up, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's like, top 5, top 10 forwards in the league. 76 blocks is really nice. So if you have that in your format and a points league, or if you're in a category league, this guy is doing that in spades. And just keep an eye on the Wild at the trade deadline. And this guy is a really low risk play that can absolutely pay off.
Yep, I agree with all that. Let's move on to the next player. That's going to be Zayne Parekh for me. This is a guy that obviously we've talked about before. Just a guy who oozes upside, right? In a game where you get to the end of your fantasy season, and in these tighter leagues, in these better leagues, there are so few players left on the waiver wires by this point in the season that actually have some real upside to change the outcome of your fantasy matchups, to get you into the playoffs, to get you through the playoffs and to a championship. And Zayne Parekh is absolutely a guy who has that upside to make that change for your fantasy team. I think there's a pretty good scenario here in which Calgary does sell off some guys, and they look at Zayne Parekh and they're like, okay, it's go time. Let's play you 22 minutes a night. Let's play you 24 minutes a night, and let's just see what we have here. Let you make all the mistakes you need to, feel the game out for a lot of minutes, and let's see what we have here. I think that scenario definitely exists. I don't know if that's how they're thinking, obviously. Somebody can tell me what Ryan Huska is thinking at this exact moment. That would be great, but I wouldn't be surprised, right? Like, this is a crown jewel of their prospects pool at this point. And so it wouldn't be surprising for them to say, this is the point in the season that we need to figure out what we got here and what we're going to do to build around him moving forward. And the pedigree is the big thing here. When I look at a guy like Zayne Parekh, when I look at the prospect profile, this is very, very similar to me to what I was seeing with Brandt Clarke. You've heard me talk about Brandt Clarke even before he was getting normal minutes with the Kings, and that's finally starting to come true. Even Jim Hiller can't keep Brandt Clarke down. And I think Zayne Parekh, like, if you just look at the raw stats and everything he's been able to do, he profiles very similarly to Brandt Clarke in my mind. Maybe even more efficient, maybe even more dangerous as a shooter than Brandt Clarke is. And so that's really exciting in terms of the upside, right? And so maybe we don't get that this year. Maybe this isn't the year where he pops off and helps your fantasy team. But because he has that potential, it's a guy you simply cannot ignore at 16% rostered in Yahoo leagues right now.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add other than this. This is an amazing stash. Again, very low risk. Like, that's what's kind of fun about this episode. These are guys you go out and you pick up, and if it doesn't work out, you bounce them to the curb. No problem, right? But we could be looking at a legit power play one defenseman. For this to work out, though, he needs 20 plus minutes. Like, and Ryan Huska has to, be part of that bargain, right? Like, I just don't see why, especially if the Flames go into full sell mode, they lose Kadri, Blake Coleman maybe goes somewhere else. What are we doing? I don't see a reason why. I mean, obviously they know the inner workings of the team, and I will trust them to understand maybe what's going to be best for a young player's development. But when you got an offensive defenseman like this with the skill set that Zayne Parekh has, he needs to be put in offensive positions, and he needs to not be worried about making mistakes. And when you give a guy like this 15 minutes average time on ice in his first 13 games, you're not really giving him a vote of confidence, right? You're telling him like you don't trust him out there. And that's really clear. He has 1 assist in 13 games. That doesn't make any sense to me. That says to me very clearly that Ryan Huska was like kind of just dipping his toe in the water and be like, you know what? No. But there's zero reason for him to do that now. I really hope it happens, and I think there's a good chance. Like, what do you think the odds are that they're going to do this? Because they have a couple other guys there that, you know, maybe they like as well on the power play. Guys like, you know, obviously have Zayne Parekh, but who's that other young defenseman? I'm trying to remember his name. Yan Kuznetsov. They have him out there. Obviously, you got Uyghur. Like, if Uyghur doesn't get traded, do you think they put Parekh on power play 1 instead of Uyghur?
I think that they would be crazy not to. I think that it's also very possible that the myth of rational NHL coaching continues to be a real factor when it comes to fantasy hockey. And Ryan Huska is just a guy who has to stick with the veteran because that's the correct way to coach in the National Hockey League.
Like Cronin 2.0.
Yeah, not quite that bad, I don't think. But yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to evaluate what Ryan Huska's done with this team. Like, obviously he got them to play a certain way and it worked with some great percentages last year, and they just didn't do enough to add any offense to this team. And so they ended up in a place where they just couldn't outscore anything, and it started to spiral from there this year. So it's pretty hard for me to evaluate Ryan Huska as a coach, honestly, based on the team that they had, which was probably objectively the least talented offensive team in the league going into the year. So yeah, that's the tough part with Calgary for sure. But yeah, if I had to put odds on it, I think I would go honestly pretty close to 50-50 that he actually gets some kind of run with power play 1 and 20 plus minutes a night. So yeah, for myself, I'm not adding him like tomorrow. That's not my personal plan with Zayne Parekh, but you bet I'm watching Calgary games. And if I see that move to him on power play 1 and Uyghur down to power play 2, then that's when I'm going to be interested in picking up Zayne Parekh, especially if the schedule looks good for that week. All right, let's keep it moving. Let's talk about Jonathan Marchessault. Now, this is a player that I feel like fantasy hockey managers have just completely forgotten about. I think that he has quietly started to get hot in the 5 games leading into the Olympics. He did have 5 points in those 5 games, just under 16 minutes average time on ice, 15th shots per 60, 19th individual expected goals for per 60, 16th on ice expected goals for per 60. The metrics were all trending in the right direction in a big way. He is, on the season 92nd in individual expected goals for per 60, so not terrific, but definitely trending in the right way. He's got a 49% IPP on the season, which is just insane.
Gross.
I think that this is a guy who does run hot and run cold pretty significantly, and maybe that's something we should expect. But I also think it's quite possible that this is a guy who runs hot the rest of the year. We did see him get a look on power play 1 in the game before the Olympics here. I don't know if that's the plan moving forward, but if it is, for a guy who's a big-time shot generator, has been throughout his career, and seems like he's trending more in that direction again now, if he's getting power play 1, if he's going to get more than 16 minutes a night, if he's going to push more into that 17-18 minute range, then I'm starting to get actually pretty interested in what Jonathan Marchessault could bring to the table for me. Last game was playing with Philip Forsberg on a line there. That's not a bad place to be in terms of line mates on Nashville. So there's just a lot of stuff that's starting to look like it might be breaking Marchessault's way finally after what's been a pretty dreadful season for him to date. And so I just don't want to discount the fact that this guy might have a terrific end to the season and might actually, win some people some things, and everybody's going to be like, wait a second, I thought this guy was totally washed, and it's just because they weren't paying attention. 16% rostered on Yahoo. Are you interested, Blake?
Yeah, definitely, man. I think this is a good pull because, there's a couple factors here that really keep him underrated, right? Age, right? I mean, he's an older player. Also, Nashville's historic performance since he's been there, right? It's been bad. He had a decent year last year, which was nice. What did he have last year? Yeah, 57 points in 78 games, pretty nice. But yeah, he's pacing for 37 points this year with the Preds, and that's really, really gross and super disappointing. But when he had his bigger year with the Preds last year, he was getting that power play opportunity. So exactly what you said. Now that he has kind of a path to power play one, if they're going to roll him out there on power play one, they're going to play him with Philip Forsberg. Like, those are just little edges, right? Those are just little micro edges that can help this player kind of get back to what he was able to do. I don't think people understand too. I read an article, I don't know, I think it was just a few months ago about Marchessault, and he was talking about his time in Nashville. Like, first off, the change going to that team, and he struggled with some mental health stuff. And I mean, yeah, like that kind of makes some sense, like he was just having a hard time. And I think that kind of bled over a little bit into this year, and he's had injuries. So it's good to see that he's healthy and he's starting to kind of get his mojo back. And the Preds are surprisingly, they're looking pretty good. What a difference it makes when you get a 40-goal scorer and Steven Stamkos actually playing like a 40-goal scorer. Like, yeah. And then, other Preds who we might talk about a little bit later in this episode really stepping up. Some of the young guns there just making a big difference. So all that to say, I think that this is you're getting Jonathan Marchessault if you go pick him up at really kind of still like his floor, right? You're getting a low point Marchessault, but he's trending upwards. And I think that's the really key piece. And again, another low risk ad that can really help you out as long as it makes sense for your team and your schedule.
All right, let's keep moving. Let's talk about Justin Sourdif. I actually meant to look up the pronunciation on this,
okay, let me do
and
this
I completely blanked on
Sourdif.
Is that how it is?
I don't know.
It reads French, right? Like, it reads as a French last
I always say
name.
Sourdif.
Okay, that's what AI told me. Where's the pronunciation guide? That's what we really need. Sourdif. It is Sourdif. Okay.
All right.
Just
we feel good about this.
We have established, and we will call
That's
him.
good live podcasting right there.
That's terrific live podcasting.
Unbelievable. Elite.
Come to the Patreon for a masterclass on podcasting later on.
That's right. We're bringing in a guest speaker, folks. Don't worry.
Yeah. Let's talk about Justin Sourdif. Zone entries, first off, is the one thing I want to talk about. That's something that has popped early for Sourdif. This is a player, don't forget, was acquired for a second-round pick by the Capitals this offseason from the Panthers. Like, the Panthers are usually the team, like, it feels like Bill Zito has never made a bad move in his life, and that's why the Panthers are in the place that they're in currently. But this is one that might actually go the Capitals' way and be trending that way in a hurry. Sourdif, not a lot of good stuff in the underlying microstat profile here for him currently, but the zone entries are one thing that really do stand out for him. A lot of volume on those zone entries and doing a good job of it. And I think you're starting to see a little bit of that payoff. Of course, too, most of this data that we have from all three zones is from the beginning of the year, where he's still getting his feet under him, and we've really seen him grow into a bigger role as the season has regressed here, and the results have followed that. I also see it in the advanced stats, the stuff that we're tracking with the expected goals and everything in the 5 games going into the break here. He was 28th in individual expected goals for per 60. That's really, really good stuff. We now have Pierre-Luc Dubois back with the Capitals. He did play in the last game before the Olympics, and so maybe that throws a bit of a wrench into the deployment for Sourdif. So that's something to watch moving forward. In the last game, he was playing with Beauvillier and Leonard, which is obviously not the best line that Washington can throw out there on any given day. So it's definitely something to watch. I'm not saying that Sourdif is a must-roster guy right now, but it is a guy who has trended in the right direction consistently all year long, who has some good stuff in the microsets that make me think that, as he learns to grow the other areas of his game, I think that he has something here. He has a role on this team. He has a way to create stuff that other players simply don't. And that gives me some excitement about what he might be able to be even as soon as the rest of this season.
Yeah, this is a neat player. I'm glad you brought this player to the table because, I'm not sure that we're going to be getting the fantasy production really that we want from this guy, especially with PLD coming back. But this is a player of interest for me. And like you said, I think this was a really nice piece that Washington was able to secure. You talked about the zone entries. Like, this guy's a rookie, folks. So the fact that he's carrying the puck into the zone on his line, like he was playing with Alexi Protas and Tom Wilson for a lot of that. So those are established NHLers, and this guy's the one carrying the puck in, more often than not. So I think that's something that I think, and I've talked with Corey Schneider before about this, you bring that into the league, right? And it just gets better over time. It's not something you sort of develop as you go along. It's something you kind of bring into the league. And Justin sort of has that. And that is something that can definitely equal offense later on in his career. We also saw this guy had a 5-point game here recently. Like, I mean, he does that, right? He's played really well. I also think that he's really, really good defensively. Like this guy's good in like transition defense, right? Entry disruption, things like that. Another thing that is not common for a young player. So like, I'm digging in on some of his metrics here too. Like his puck management skills, not awesome, right? But he's a rookie. So I just think there's a lot of ceiling for this type of player. I think he's going to be a really solid NHLer. I think in his career, I could see this guy getting 55 to 60 points. And, if he really gets put in a position to succeed, like, maybe 70. This is a guy that can actually do something. But, it's a guy that needs to be on your radar when Washington has a good schedule, which, even the back half of this week here, Nate and I are going to go in and kind of reboot that and just give you an idea of who you should be rostering for the back half of this week. How about Justin Sourdif, right? Washington plays 3 games with 2 off nights. You get those 2 off nights in with Sourdif. He's a player that can absolutely do something for you for fantasy.
All right, let's keep moving. Let's talk about Luke Evangelista. One more time, for the people in the back who haven't heard me talk about Luke Evangelista yet this season, gotta do it here. We probably don't need to rehash every single thing that we've already said about Luke Evangelista at this point, but the fact that he's 11% rostered on Yahoo still is pretty criminal. I will say, as we mentioned with Jonathan Marchessault getting the look on Power Play 1, it was Evangelista who came off Power Play 1 to make room for Marchessault there, so that's something to watch. Obviously, a huge piece of fantasy relevance is getting that consistent power play deployment. Something to watch. But this is a guy who just pops off the page for me, especially the microstat stuff. He's an absolute darling in terms of the microstats. Like, you just look across the board. The shots are above average, but the shot assists, the chance assists are just through the roof. The entries with chances per 60 is like 99th percentile stuff. It's absolutely elite from Luke Evangelista, which is obviously, for a young player to be at that level already, is really, really exciting stuff. You see some good stuff on the defensive side of the puck as well, which should keep him, in these top 6 roles, even when the points aren't coming for him. I love what I see in terms of the microstats from Luke Evangelista. It's hard to overstate how good it looks on that side of things. And he's been getting rewarded in terms of the assists. But the one thing I actually think is really exciting about Luke Evangelista in terms of this season is the fact that he's only on 12-goal pace and with a 6.6% shooting percentage, which is actually insane for a guy of this caliber. I think Evangelista deserves a ton more goals than he scored already on the season. Whether or not he gets them this year, we've seen some crazy percentages run out for a full year, in times past, but I do think that this is a guy who can do better than that. He's never been like a high percentage shooter, so I'm not going to say that he's suddenly going to turn into a 15% guy, but there's very few players in the league who shoot so badly that they'll shoot 6.6%. Looking at you, Evan Rodriguez. But I think that Luke Evangelista, of all people, is a guy who should be in line for a lot more. Still getting close to 18 minutes a night. Had 4 points in his last 5, headed into the Olympic break here. Love, love, love Luke Evangelista as a player, and you should too.
Absolutely, pal. I don't have much to add here. I love that you brought up his defensive game, because that's a really important thing. It doesn't really matter for fantasy in a direct way, but if you've got a young player that is playing well defensively, he's going to get more minutes, right? He's going to get more opportunity, and more minutes and opportunity in fantasy equals more production, right? So that's where I'm at with Evangelista too. This guy, he's pacing for 62 points. He was pacing for like 70 plus before. He went through a little bit of a spell where he wasn't, putting the points on the board, but this has been a great season, and there's a hell of a lot more headroom. You talked about his shooting percentage, like, he's the one guy on his line that's really not converting, right? Stamkos is starting to pop off. Ryan O'Reilly is doing really well in terms of his goal scoring. So I think it's going to come. I think this is like 11% rostered. No, that's way too low. This is a guy that really drives play. And, we've talked about this before too. I think Luke Evangelista is one of the main reasons why Stamkos and Ryan O'Reilly have had some success. I think he's a completely underrated member of that line. And the offensive driving that he does there is really helping these guys start to convert and do what they should be doing, right? So great move by Burnett to get him on the top line. And 11% rostered for a line one guy with potential for power play one, that's way too low.
Absolutely agree with all that. Evangelista, I believe, has been Stamkos's most consistent line mate on the season, so could be a big reason for that improvement from Stamkos's side. All right, let's get even deeper. Let's go under 10% rostered. Egor Chinakhov. This is a pretty interesting one. Player that I think a lot of people were ready to give up on, myself included. And it's a guy who has really popped since getting to Pittsburgh here. And maybe it's just, countryman stuff there with Evgeny Malkin, who he's been playing with, but 5 points in 5 games, still under 15 minutes. It's like Anthony Mantha, Justin Brazeau, all these guys are producing with low minutes, and I don't know how they're doing it, but it seems to be working. But Chinakhov, 5th in shots per 60, 27th individual expected goals for per 60, 10th in on-ice expected goals for per 60 in those 5 games. It's really, really good numbers in obviously a tiny sample size for Chinakhov, a guy I'm pretty interested in seeing how this goes from here on out. Do I think that he might need a situation like a Crosby injury for him to get up on power play one and maybe have even more to give? But if he can find this level of 5v5 success alongside Malkin, like Crosby's injury may affect Chinakhov less than basically anybody else there in Pittsburgh and may actually help him.
Yeah, it's a neat player to consider, right? Like 9% rostered. This guy was left for dead by Columbus, right? And I really think that I remember a time when he was trending upwards. This is a guy like, when Chinakhov comes back, yeah, he's got those good underlying stats as well. Like we kind of had him in the same conversation as Kirill Marchenko, I think at one point. It was kind of like a Gabe Vilardi, Cole Perfetti type of thing. Like, who's it going to be, right? And Marchenko obviously was the one who came out of that, on top. But I also think that Chinakhov did not have the coach's confidence at all with Dean Evason there in Columbus. It was obviously a problem. He was requesting a trade. So I think there was a lot of mental stuff that was going on and it was really affecting his performance, right? I mean, he was healthy. He was good to go. And he was getting like 9 minutes a night. So I think even just a change of pace where he's going in and getting better minutes, which he's obviously getting here in Pittsburgh, that was always going to be something that was going to help him. And then on top of that, you got like a resurgent Geno Malkin, who's like his expected goals for on-ice expected goals is going through the roof, right? Like right now, the line of Novak, Malkin, and Chinakhov is the 3rd best line in terms of expected goals for on the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's crazy, right? Like, and I think Malkin's driving a lot of that, right? Malkin is having a great year in terms of just generating offense. But yeah, like you said, Chinakhov, fellow countryman, along for the ride. He's got a great shot. And Pittsburgh as a team, again, very surprising team, but they are really generating a ton of offense on the year. They're 3rd best at 5-on-5 expected goals for, 8th best in actual goals for. They're a wagon in terms of a 5-on-5 offense, and their special teams are great too. So I just think, again, very low risk, 9% player. He's got a great shot. Like if he did get power play one, like we got to keep an eye on that, right? If Crosby's out, which I think he will be, at least for a little bit, Mantha would be the main guy. But what if it's Chinakhov? If it's Chinakhov, yeah, I think we really have to consider that, right? He's getting a lot more minutes with the Penguins, and that power play has been really good. So yeah, I like the pull. I think this is a player that still has lots of runway left in his career, and I don't think he should be defined by kind of that poor stretch he had in Columbus.
All right, I agree with all that. Let's talk about my favorite guy to talk about recently. It's Jimmy Snuggerud. Obviously, it's a player that I've talked about a lot, but I had to talk about him with Blake given the recent goings on. Things that I've been talking about with Jimmy Snuggles. The Blues need him, right? This is a team that's talking about trading Robert Thomas, their best player. Like, this is not a team that's looking at being competitive this year anymore, it seems like. And so Jimmy Snuggles has been a guy who has continually seen his minutes rise over the course of the season. In the last 5 games before the Olympics, he was close to 18 minutes a night. He scored 8 points in those 5 games, absolutely on fire. And it's a guy who had some expectations. Like the pedigree was there. Like people thought that Jimmy Snuggerud could be a guy who would have a nice season in his rookie season if everything broke right for him. And it's starting to feel like it is going to break right for him, both in terms of the deployment and of his individual confidence. So if the deployment is coming up, this is a guy who I think can get pretty efficient pretty fast and have a big impact in your fantasy leagues. The microstats look great here. This is a really, really impressive guy, kind of across the board. Guy who's producing a lot of high danger assists, a guy who's taken a lot of shots, a guy who is really good on that cyclone forecheck offense, entries with chances. It's all really, really strong, especially for a guy just coming into the NHL as Jimmy Snuggerud is. So Jimmy Snuggles, 7% rostered on Yahoo. Make it make sense, Blake.
What are we doing, folks? Buddy, I could listen to you talk about microstats all day. I'm taking the dub on that. Bringing microstats into this realm, but man, I love hearing you talk about that because it's exactly right. This guy's bringing so much to the table. It's just a young player on the rise, and obviously, if the Blues are looking at trading Robert Thomas, they're looking at trading Jordan Kyrou potentially. I mean, it doesn't sound like anyone's off the table there. So, except for the young guys, so that equals more opportunity for a guy like Jimmy Snuggerud. And I think this is a guy that can absolutely do something with that. An underrated part of his game, I think, is his ability to play through contact, right? Like he's really, really good down low, in terms of like board battles, forechecks, the ability to win battles and kind of move the puck east-west down low. He's really, really good at that, right? And yeah, if you trade some of these players off the Blues, maybe he has a few less players to kind of pass to or get those passes. But I just think this is a player that has all the talent in the world. And the fact that the way they played him in the playoffs last year, that was right off the bat. You and I have talked about that too, but that shows a ton of confidence from a really good coach to put this young kid out there in that situation for those type of minutes. And then, this year has been interesting, right? The Blues have not been really delivering on what they did last year in the playoffs, but this is a guy that has all the talent in the world. I think he's going to get a bigger opportunity if they move some players out of there. And if they don't, I still think he's going to be good to go. He's still a big part of the future there. 7% rostered? No. All right. This is a guy that can absolutely do something. So I don't remember which week it was, maybe week 23. St. Louis has like 4 games and 4 off nights. Like, you bet your sweet bippy you got Jimmy Snuggles on your roster. If you don't, all right, shame on you.
All right, let's continue on to another St. Louis Blue who could also see his deployment rise if things break that way.
Oh, yeah.
Dalibor Dvorsky was getting 16 minutes a night in the last 5 games before the Olympics there. He goes to the Olympics and he scores 6 points in 6 games for Team Slovakia over there. Sets the record for the most points in an Olympic tournament by an NHL rookie while he's there. If the Blues do sell, like I could see a scenario where Kyrou's gone, where Thomas is gone, where Braden Shen is even gone if they get a huge offer that they feel like they can't refuse for him. Suddenly they have, 3 forwards out of their normal top 6 just gone, and Dalibor Dvorsky is suddenly playing 18 minutes a night, 19 minutes a night sometimes. That could be a real situation that could happen for this player. This great Olympics is what I'm really drawn on with this player. Obviously 1% rostered, so he's definitely out there in your league right now. But if this is a player who has gained a little bit of confidence there, starts to translate that a little bit more at the NHL level. He is a little bit more of a different profile, is a guy who probably depends on some players doing more things around him, but a guy who can absolutely rip the puck if given the opportunity. And I think we could see him get that opportunity. And yeah, for a guy 1% rostered in your deep leagues, there's so few guys who have the potential to get hot and to score like 4 goals in a week and actually win you a fantasy matchup. I think Dvorsky could be that guy if things break right.
It's a great poll. It's a really fun one as well. And all the things we just said about Jimmy Snuggerud apply for Dalibor Dvorsky as well in terms of the potential opportunity that could be coming his way, right? And I absolutely agree with you. I buy into this narrative. If like I've seen it all the time, even at All-Star games, when guys go to All-Star games and they're around all these superstars and they're kind of soaking it all in, they come back. I've seen them play better when they come back. And I'm talking about the Canucks in particular. Guys like Brock Besser and when they went to and Pettersson. But I think Dalibor Dvorsky, to have the kind of success that he did there and then to come back and potentially walk into more opportunity, Like, what's the harm? 1% rostered. Like you said, this guy can rip the puck, no question. And I think him and Snuggerud are going to be a big part of the future here in St. Louis. And we could see kind of a youth movement for St. Louis, like depending on what they do here at the trade deadline. And this guy could see 18 to 20 minutes, and that would not surprise me at all, because they wouldn't be worried about some of the weaknesses of Dalibor Dvorsky, which would be sort of his defensive play, right? Get him out there and see what they can do. I think it's a really nice pull.
All right, last player to talk about here is going to be Arseny Gritsyuk, another player that we have talked about here and there. The ice time is rising here, which is of interest. Now, how much of that ice time sticks around when the Devils are fully healthy across all of their forward lines is definitely up for debate. But he was over 17 and a half minutes average time on ice in the last 5 games heading into the Olympic break here. And this is another guy who is just an absolute microstat god. If you look at the stuff under the hood there, that is really exciting when it comes to Arseny Gritsyuk. The shots per 60, shot assists per 60, the chance contributions, all that stuff looks good. He's a positive guy in terms of the cycle and forecheck offense, big time rush offense contributor. The zone entry stuff just flies off the page at you. Elite stuff on that side, and positive stuff in terms of the defensive side of the puck too. So Gritsyuk really has it all in terms of the micro stats. I really think that this is a player that Sheldon Keefe should realize is his 5th best forward. Now, whether or not he does is definitely up for debate. We have seen some pretty questionable decisions from Keefe in terms of his deployment. And yeah, I think it's still very much up for debate how much ice time and who Gritsyuk plays alongside moving forward. Mm-hmm. But I do think that it could work out really well for Gritsyuk if he does. This is a guy, you get down to the 1% rostered players, you're looking for a guy who could really pop if given the right opportunity. And there aren't many of those guys at the 1% rostered level, but Gritsyuk is absolutely that guy. This is a mature player, right? Like, he's 24 years old. He's turning 25 actually here in March. It's not a guy who has needed a big time runway to get up to speed here in the NHL, a guy who has scored almost at a point per game pace in the KHL before. And I think that, if Jack Hughes is rejuvenated coming off that gold medal winning goal here, right? He had a great tournament for the United States. I think that there's a real situation here which Gritsyuk does have a pop off to the end of the season here, scores at a 60, 70 point pace in a best case scenario, and does actually make a huge difference for some teams heading into and through the fantasy playoffs.
Have you seen the movie Moneyball? Do you ever watch Moneyball?
Yes.
This reminds me of a guy like that old coach, Philip Seymour Hoffman, is like, okay, put this guy on first base. He's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm putting so-and-so on first base. He's like, what are you doing? Like, I feel like that's what Sheldon Keefe is doing. He's like, you know what? It's my job. Like, I'm the one responsible at the end of the day. I have to answer. And I'm not putting this guy on the top line, but he absolutely should. It doesn't make a bit of sense. Like, he's got Evgeny Dadonov up there. He's got Connor Brown up there playing on the top line. It doesn't make sense to me that Gritsyuk wouldn't get a look, at least at even strength, with Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt. I think you mentioned all the microstat stuff. This is a guy that can keep up in terms of rush play with those two players. He can do that, right? And the other thing that Gritsyuk brings that is underrated, he can forecheck, right? It's like, that's something they're missing. Like, this is a guy that can win puck battles and get it to Jack Hughes and get it to Jesper Bratt. So there's and like you mentioned, his defense, like, this guy is his defense in zone. Like, he's really, really sharp. Like I said, he's a mature player. He's really good with his puck control, puck management, all that stuff. It doesn't make sense. So I really hope that we see this, because New Jersey, they have to do something. They're one of the worst. They are the worst offensive team at 5-on-5. And, I think now is the time to put a player like this. This guy's a spark plug. He can get out there. And like I said, he can keep up absolutely with a rejuvenated Jack Hughes. And I think 1%, I mean, what's your return on investment there? Like, I could see him, if he does get that opportunity, getting like a 50-point pace, like rest of season. And that'll do. That'll absolutely play. And this is a player that I think, in his career, if things break right and he gets the right kind of coaching, is a guy that could, I don't want to get too crazy here, but like there's point per game bones to a player like this. But obviously he needs this is season 1 for him. I think he needs a lot more seasoning, and he needs a coach that really trusts him to put him out there in situations. But everything under the hood is looking good. He just needs the opportunity.
All right. Well, if you made it this far in the episode, you should probably head down to the description, click that link, join the Discord community, come talk fantasy hockey with 2,000 other fantasy hockey managers. While you're here, like, a rating, a review, a subscription, a comment. It really does help us out. But that is going to be all that we've got for this episode. Hopefully it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick and 18 Skaters, and all the micro stats you heard today came from all 3 zones. Many thanks to Matt Kramer for supplying the music for the podcast. That's it, folks. Much love.